Good morning again, everyone. And a shout out to Unity of Rockford, Illinois. Thanks for all your love and support. We love you guys. Thank you. Woo, woo. So this lawyer, this doctor, a little boy and a priest are all flying on this small plane for an afternoon flight when the plane developed some engine trouble. And in spite of the best efforts of the pilot, the plane started going down, and finally the pilot yelled out, "It's going down. We better jump, grab a parachute, and bail out." Unfortunately, there were only 3 parachutes left for the 4 people on. Immediately, the doctor grabbed a parachute and said, "I am a doctor. I save lives, so I must live." And he jumped out. And then the lawyer grabbed a parachute and said, "I am the smartest man in the world. I definitely deserve to live." And he grabbed a parachute and he jumped out. And then the priest, looking at the little boy with love and kindness in his eyes, said, "Son, I have lived a long and full and wonderful life. You're young and your life is still all ahead of you. Take this parachute and go and live in peace." Handing the priest back the parachute, the little boy said, "Don't worry, Father. The smartest man in the world just jumped out with my backpack." So, this morning we're going to talk about kindness. We're going to talk about kindness. Every single one of us wants to live a happy and successful life. Every one of us wants to live a life of meaning and fulfillment. And how many people would agree that being kind, caring, and compassionate towards others is a really important aspect of living a happy and fulfilling life? How many people would agree to that? How many people would say that you are a kind, caring, and compassionate person? How many people? From the time we were children, we were taught to be kind. Be kind to others, be considerate, be thoughtful, be caring, be helpful to others. Caring and kindness is a very important value in our culture. The Dalai Lama said, "My religion is kindness." It is so highly revered, kindness. We have random acts of kindness week. We talk about kindness because we know how important it is for us to be kind. And what is amazing is, as highly revered as kindness is, there's one person we're not so kind to. There's one person that we are not, that we are so critical and judgmental of, and that person is ourselves. How many people here have ever messed up or said something really stupid or ridiculous and you just beat yourself for weeks about it? Anybody ever do that? And the question is, why? Why are we so hard on ourselves? Why do we beat up ourselves? Why do we criticize and judge ourselves so harshly? Now, it's true that every single one of us has something in our lives, some area where we feel inadequate, some area where we feel like we don't measure up, some area that we feel ashamed of. And maybe it's our body, maybe it's our look, maybe it's some mistake we have made, maybe some poor decision. There's some area in our lives where we feel like we're just not quite good enough, where we feel that we're unlovable or unworthy. Some active part of ourselves that we just don't like. And instead of being kind, instead of being positive and supporting of ourselves, we can be critical, cold, and even cruel. The question is, how does this happen? I think some of it, there are many factors involved, like our family history and how our parents treated us, our culture, the expectations that we have of ourselves and life itself. We live in a world where it's about competition, where it's about being number one, being the best. It's about winning. It's about being the strongest. It's about being the richest. It's about being the smartest. It's about being the top in your field. It's about winning the championship, and that's the only thing that matters. And then not only do we live in a world of competition, then we compare ourselves to others, constantly comparing. Society or advertisers say what beautiful is, and we compare our body to what beautiful looks like. We compare our bank account of what rich and successful looks like. And when we don't measure up, what do? We feel bad about ourselves. We get upset at ourselves. And then you add in the pressure of perfection, this unhealthy belief that we should always get everything right. We should always say the right thing and do the right thing. And if we don't, we punish ourselves with shame, with guilt, with judgment and criticism. And we have two things that we do to help ourselves. They're misguided, but the two things we do to try and help ourselves is to self-aggrandize and we self-criticize. Self-aggrandizing is to try and make ourselves better than we are usually by putting someone else down, that I'm better than them, I'm superior to them. In our culture, we think the only way we can feel good about ourselves is to be special, to be incredible, to do something amazing, and we always have to be above average. Anybody ever read Garrison Keillor or listen to Lake Wobegon? In Lake Wobegon, where all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. You know why? Because average ain't good enough and below average is horrible. Do you know that 85% of students think they're above average? Think about that. 94% of college professors believe that they're better teachers than their colleagues. 90% of drivers believe that they're better than all the other drivers. We have this desire to feel good about ourselves by making ourselves better and making others inferior. And why that might give us a momentary sugar high rush. The fact is we always crash. You know why? Because it creates isolation and separation. It creates differences and disconnect between ourselves and others. Second misguided thing we do to try and make ourselves better is that we self-criticize. We judge and put ourselves down. We say things like, I am such a loser. How could I have said something so stupid? How did I blow that deal? I never get anything right. You know, I'm so fat and disgusting. I look like a cow in this dress. And I look pretty good in a dress, actually. But anyway, we think of things like this. We set these standards for ourselves, and when we fail, we get disappointed and we become cruel with ourselves. You know, and we think berating ourselves will actually inspire us to get better in some way. You know, we think putting down ourselves is somehow going to help us to improve. You know, and at some level, when we berate ourselves, we feel good. At least we have high standards. I mean, it's a very, very unhealthy thing. You know, beating ourselves up for beating ourselves up in hopes that we will avoid beating ourselves up is just messed up. And the fact is, it is not logical, the things that we do. Self-aggrandizing or self-criticizing is not helpful, it's actually harmful. And it reinforces these negative, unhealthy patterns. Do you know that they've done studies that depression is strongly related to people who are critical of themselves? That self-judgment and self-criticism is strongly connected to depression, dissatisfaction, unhappiness, and anxiety. You know, there's a new area of study that can help us be kinder to ourselves. So, that can be more successful, be more happy, and improve our relationships, and it's self-compassion. It is that in those moments when we feel hurt, when we feel inadequate, when we feel angry or jealous or ashamed, that it is in moments we need to be kind to ourselves. That we need to be caring. We need to be understanding. You know, and when we give ourselves love in those moments, you know, it actually reduces our stress and our anxiety. You know, it eliminates our sense of unworthiness. And what it does most importantly, it helps us to release our judgment and our criticism of ourselves, which is the most harmful thing of all. That when we give ourselves compassion and understanding, we are more accepting of ourselves, more positive about ourselves, and we tend to embrace our lives and live more fully. And we are more engaged in life itself. So I ask you the question, when you feel ashamed, when your shame gets triggered or you mess up or make a mistake, how do you treat yourself? Is it with kindness, care, and compassion? Or are you cruel and brutal and harsh on yourself? How many people know you could do a better job being kinder and gentler and more caring and compassionate with yourself? How many people know that? Every single one of us does. Because it'll make us feel more healthy. It'll make us feel more whole. It improves the quality of our relationship. It improves our health and our wholeness. It makes us more engaged in life. You know why? Because we feel safe. We feel supported. We're not criticized. And so what are the things we can do to be good to ourselves? To be kinder and more compassionate to ourselves? The first one is to practice self-awareness. If we want to heal anything, we got to be aware of what we want to heal. We got to heal. We got to be aware of when we feel shame or anger or fear or jealousy or pain. But the thing that we don't do so well in the culture is we don't allow ourselves to feel our hurt. We would rather avoid or deny or pretend or stuff down our hurt because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, and sometimes it seems weak and vulnerable, and we don't like to do that. We would rather bury and hide it, even though it'll fester and cause us more pain, than actually deal with it. When we get triggered of our shame or unworthiness or inferiority because we're too short or we had too many wrinkles or we had a really bad performance review, what we do is instead of being kind to ourselves, we lament the flaw and the mistake. And we absolutely miss owning and acknowledging the hurt that we feel and the pain and the suffering that we feel from thinking we need to be perfect. But the truth is, if we're going to be compassionate about ourselves, we need to know what we're being compassionate about by feeling and acknowledging what we're actually feeling. The practice of mindfulness is just being aware about what you're feeling, being aware of what you're thinking. And you can only be mindful in the here and now. Now is the only time that exists of what you're feeling and what you're thinking. The past can only exist in our memories. The future can only exist in our imaginations. And now is all we have, and mindfulness and being aware of what we're aware of in the moment is the most important thing. And it's not just a matter of feeling your sadness, but it's being aware that you're feeling sadness. It's not just enough to be aware of feeling, not just that you're feeling angry, but it's being aware that you are experiencing anger. And that might sound like an insignificant distinction, but it's a powerful one. Because when we're actually lost in anger, we're not even aware of it. We're actually consumed by it. When we're aware that we're angry, it actually creates some objectivity, and we can make some better choices, and it doesn't suck us in and control us. Just being aware of your thoughts and feelings absolutely makes a difference. You know why? Because when you're just aware of it, you're not denying, you're not resisting, you're not pretending. And when you're just aware, guess what? You don't judge or criticize. When you're aware, you know what happens? When you're just aware, even of your sadness, it makes the sadness not as bad. It actually lightens us, it empowers us, and liberates us from the sadness. When you fight the sadness, you actually get more angry. When you criticize your sadness, you get more sad. When you judge yourself for being sad, that's where the problem comes. Not in the feeling, but the judging and the criticizing of that feeling. Does that make sense, everyone? Do you know they've done studies of people who are mindful, who are just aware of what they're feeling and going on throughout the day? They're less threatened and reactive when things get scary. They tend to freak out less. They tend to stay less calm. They even deal with pain better because when you're mindful, things aren't as harsh as we pretend and make them up to be. So what's the practice we need to do is just be mindful, and whatever feeling or experience you have during the day, just make a mental note of it. Like, I'm aware that I'm feeling excited. I'm aware that I'm feeling kind of scared. I'm aware that I'm feeling kind of hot. I'm aware that I'm kind of tired. I'm aware that my back is hurting. I'm aware of whatever it is. I'm aware that my mind is just racing around and jumping around. Whatever it is, you're just aware of it. What you're doing is training your brain to be aware, to pay attention. And when you do it, it is amazing how powerful it is. You begin to be liberated from it. Let's do a little practice. Everybody close your eyes, take a deep breath. I just want you to pay attention and be aware of your breath. Feel the air as it comes into your body. Feel your body expand. Feel the air as it leaves, and feel your body contract. Breathing in, feel the expansion. Breathing out, feel your body contract. Breathing in, expand. Breathing out, contract. Feel the air in your nostrils as it comes in. Be aware of the air as it leaves through your mouth. And now switch your attention from your breath to your body. Be in your body and just notice your neck and your shoulders. Don't judge it or change it. Just be aware of your neck and shoulders. Now, be aware of your hands. Don't need to judge it, or just be aware of your hands. Now, be aware of your feet as they touch the ground. Just be aware. Before you start thinking or judging, let's go back to our breath. Feel the air as it comes in. Feel the air as it leaves. Feel your body expand as you breathe in. Feel your body contract as you breathe out. Now I want you to move your attention from your breath to your emotions. Pay attention and be aware of what you're feeling right now. What are your emotions? Don't judge it. Just be aware of your emotions. Be aware of what you're feeling. Before you judge it or label it, Let's go back to our breath. Feel the air as it comes in. Feel the air as it leaves your body. Feel the expansion in your chest and abdomen. Feel it contract. Another breath in and breathe out. And now switch your awareness from your breath to what you're hearing. Listen to the sounds and just be aware of what you're hearing. Be aware of the sound of my voice. Be aware of the air conditioning and the sound of the lights, or just the ambient noise in the room. Just be aware of what you're hearing. Don't judge it. Just be aware. And again, let's go back to our breath. Deep breath in and out. One other deep breath in and just let it out. And just open your eyes. How many people would say you feel a little bit more relaxed now than you did a few minutes ago? Everybody? And you know what we did? Nothing. Except we were aware of what we were feeling, what we were thinking. We didn't try to change anything. And notice how you just calm down by being aware. That even when you're aware of your anger, your sadness, it is amazing how it has an easier effect on us, and we don't add the judgment and the criticism, which really causes the most suffering than anything else. Just being aware. So self-awareness is the first thing to compassion, and the second one is to practice self-kindness. Do you know that your brain and your body is built for giving and receiving care? That we are all born with what is called an attachment care-giving system that is a part of our survival instinct. You know, you always hear people say that fight or flight is a part of our instinct. Well, guess what? There's something called tend and befriend that is a part of our instinct. Because the truth is, if we didn't care for one another and support and befriend and be cooperative with one another, we wouldn't survive. It's instinctive for us to be caring and cooperative and supportive with one another. We are all born into this world needing care, and we receive that care from our parents. And the more we receive that care, guess what? It builds a bond of trust, and we feel safe. And that bond and attachment we get when we feel trust and care from someone else actually affects how we treat ourselves. That we're more compassionate and supportive to ourselves. But if when we're young, we didn't have a secure attachment, that the people didn't take care of us as we wanted, guess what? We have an insecure attachment, and we feel less compassion for ourselves. We feel less safe and less secure. The good news about it is, even if we didn't get it all when we were young, the good news is we can improve our attachment and caregiving ability by actually being nurturing and kind to ourselves. Do you know when you're kind and loving to yourself and supportive of yourself, your oxytocin levels go up, and that's the hormone that releases for love and for bonding? It is absolutely amazing. Everybody always hears of our inner critic, your inner critic. Guess what? You also have an inner nurturer and an inner comforter. The fact is we just don't use it as much. So here are the two practices that we can do to really help ourselves, to be more kind to ourselves. And the first one, it's going to sound dorky, but it's to give yourself a hug. Everybody, just give yourself a hug. Do you know that just even touching yourself, the skin receptors, that it reduces your blood pressure and makes you feel more calm? And here's the thing, not only, it's when you're touching yourself, or you can pat yourself or touch your face, what is to say something kind like, hey, I know you're hurting right now, but it's going to be okay. And even though you're hurting and you're angry right now, just know everything's going to be okay, and I love you right where you are. You don't need to change a thing, because I love you and I believe in you and I'm here for you right where you are. And even though you've messed up and things aren't feeling good, things will get better. Things will improve. I love you and everything's going to be okay. Do you know if you just do that, the oxytocin levels and the feeling of peace will just expand in ourselves? How many people would say it's kind of goofy to give yourself a hug and talk to yourself like, oh, I love you, you're so wonderful, isn't it? Anybody agree that it's kind of goofy and awkward? Okay, I was doing it in my own house yesterday and I felt weird. And, but it felt good too. And so, but here's the interesting thing. Isn't it amazing that we are more comfortable saying, I am such an idiot, I just messed up and screwed up? That feels more comfortable than giving yourself a hug and saying, it's okay, I love you and I understand that you're hurting right now. Isn't it interesting? The fact is we have that ability to be an inner nurturer and instead of an inner critic. And if we have a difficult time, just pretend that whatever you're feeling right now, Suppose a friend told you that about them. What would you say to them? Because I guarantee you, every one of us would say something loving, nurturing, and supportive to our friend. And what we need to do is just say that to ourselves. We want to be more kind to ourselves. We want to express compassion. It's to be aware of the feelings we have without judging or criticizing it. And then it's to express kindness by giving ourselves a hug and saying something positive and affirming to ourselves. And the third one is to practice oneness. Do you know what's interesting? We do two things when we're hurting. The first one is we tend to isolate and we think we're the only one. When we're hurt, we feel like the only one that ever got dumped. We're the only one that's in pain. We're alone. My suffering is the worst. I'm all by myself. Nobody loves me. And we go to this isolationist where we draw away from people. And the second good thing we do is we create an us versus them. She did it to me. They did it to me. We start creating distinction between us and whoever them is. It could be anybody. Those Democrats. Oh my God, those Democrats. Those Republicans. Those Mexicans. Those Muslims. It's those Americans. And the worst, those Canadians. They're the worst. And what we do in times of hurt is the opposite thing that we need. We feel alone and isolated, and we push people away by thinking it's them. And we create separation between ourselves. Do you know every single one of us has an inner need to belong? Loneliness is nothing but a feeling disconnected from others. Even when we're in a full room, we can feel alone. And the fact is that research shows that when we feel alone and isolated, we're twice as likely to have heart disease. And in contrast, research shows that when you're a part of a group, and whether it's a men's group or a women's group or a hikers group or a singles group or whatever kind of group, is that you feel more connected. You actually feel more supported. You actually handle the difficulties better, and you feel more confidence in yourself when we are in connection and relationship with one another. That whole befriending system is a natural part of us, and we're all yearning to feel that security and connection and oneness. And we need to remind ourselves that we are one. And one of the things about being in affiliation with groups, that's good to be in all those different groups. Nothing wrong with, how happy to be an American or a Mexican or a Republican. But the thing is, then you've got to not let that get too exclusive. You need to open the bigger picture and realize we're all part of one human family. We are all children of God. Every human being alive wants to feel loved. Every human being alive feels shame and disappointment and hurts. Every single person alive wants to feel happy and joy. They want to feel encouraged. They want to feel their life matters. And knowing that we're connected to one human family, that we are one, we're connected and one with all people, actually is the strongest level of connection that make us feel good about ourselves and live more joyfully. I am a part of our human family. Together, I am a part of our human family. I am one with all people. I am one with all people. We all share a common human experience. Together, we all share a common human experience. Listen to the brilliant words of Einstein. He said, "A human being is a part of the whole called by us the universe, a part that is limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and his feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and affection to a few persons nearest to us. Our task is to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty." You know what he's saying? Is when we feel connected to the whole, we feel whole. When we feel separated from the whole, we feel separated and disconnected. Do you know the second greatest commandment is to love others as ourselves? The most important spiritual work you have to do is to be kind to yourself, because you are the temple of the living God. To be good and compassionate and supportive to yourself. And the greatest test of love, you know what it is? It's how you show up for you when you mess up. How much love are you expressing to yourself, through yourself, when you are hurting and feel lost and inferior or inadequate? That is the greatest test of love. And that's the most important time for us to give ourselves love. This week, if you feel ashamed or embarrassed or hurt or jealous or angry or feel regret of any kind, show yourself compassion by being aware of what you're feeling without judging it, without criticizing it. Show yourself some kindness by giving yourself a hug and saying, I love you and everything's going to be okay. And then practice your oneness by realizing we're all one. We're all part of a human family. We all feel this connection. Remind yourself of that connection. If you want you to have a better life, if you want to make this world a better place, if you want happier relationships, I invite you to take time to be kind and good to yourself. God bless you.